Okay, my couture crafters. First thing we're going to do is cut some cardstock down to 1 1/8 by 7 3/4. Then another one at 1 7/8 by 7 3/4. And then another one at 2 5/8 by 7 3/4. And then we're going to score and fold each one at 3/8 an inch from the long side. All of the measurements will be on the tutorial that I'm going to link. This is not my pattern. This is a pattern by Laura Dennison from Following the Paper Trail. It's just super duper old. Although I made this a Halloween album, I think it's going to lend itself more to a December daily kind of thing. So I've scored each piece at 3/8 an inch. And now I'm punching the V notches with an envelope punch board at 2 3/4 from each end of the narrowest and the widest strips. And I also like round the corners. And then for the medium one, I'm punching at the center at 3 7/8. So the smallest and the widest get the same. And then I'm just rounding all the corners by lining up my paper with that center mark. It doesn't have to be exact. That's just how I ended up doing it. And again, that center one is at 3 7/8. You'll be able to find this in the description bar. All right, so now I'm going to stack the deck, which is her way of binding mini albums. And you're just going to stack these on top of one another. I'm using it with the bumpy side up toward me. And if you do this right, your strips will line up perfectly in between one another. You can't see it because I'm working on this black paper, and black paper is hard to see, but they line up right in between the score lines. And then I'm just folding up the little fins and playing with them. Now, don't worry that some of these fins are going to be smaller than the pieces that we put on them. Just go with it. Make sure you're not gluing down the fins, just the center. I'm only putting glue in between the center score marks on all the pieces. That's not true. On the second and the smallest piece. And so I'm lifting them up and playing and making sure that they turn both ways. This album really goes together pretty quickly. It's not a lot to it. So now I'm grabbing 5 sheets of paper. You can grab the same color paper. I'm grabbing gray and black for my album. Again, it's a Halloween themed album. And I'm cutting the paper down to 4 by 10. All of them need to be cut down to 4 by 10. Actually, all 3 need to be cut down. You're only going to use 3 sheets in this part right here. But you're going to need 5 colors of each cardstock to do all of the pockets. So 4 by 10. And now I'm going to score and fold at 1/2 inch, 3 3/4, and 7. So 1/2 inch, 3 3/4, and then it's 7. Now with those pieces, you're going to notch the sides on both colors. So you should have 6 of each. And so I fold it over, and then I fold it over again, and that top part becomes a flap, so I fold it toward myself. And it lines up nicely. Then we're going to take the world's best glue, this art glitter glue, and close it up. And we're just going to clean up our scores if you need to, and push the paper where it needs to be. And then you've created a little pocket. So each side is open. So here you're scoring on that line, folding it over again, burnishing, burnishing, and then you're going to glue that to the back. Just the top, just that tab. You're only putting glue on that tab, and you see my fingers in the inside, the sides are open. Now I'm grabbing the 2 remaining colors of each, and I'm going to cut one at 4 by 7 1/4 rectangle and 4 by 11. So I'm cutting one at 4 by 7 1/4, and then I'm cutting another one at 4 by 11. You can do this however you choose. One sheet of paper should give you one pocket, and you need 2 of these. So I just used my 8 1/2 by 11 and cut 2 long strips and then 2 short strips. No rhyme or reason, just make sure you have 2 sets of each color. And this trimmer is funky when it comes to 7 1/4, so I just marked it with my ruler. And now you're going to score the largest rectangle at 6 1/4. You're going to take the smaller rectangles and you're going to do a 1/2 inch. We're just creating pockets, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. Now you're going to notch all the sides. I decided to do them all at one time, which made a nice confetti mess, but whatever. It works. You're notching the sides of the smaller rectangle where those 1/2 inch marks are. And I'm folding over on those 1/2 inch marks. And I'm folding over at the 6 1/4. And then I just fit them to one another so that it makes a big pocket. Both sides are open at this point. I'm only putting glue on the 1/2 inch tab. And then I'm just smoothing it out and burnishing it. And then you have a larger flap. So here I'm just rolling it over, burnishing. And there we go. Same thing for all of them. You should have 4 of these when you're finished. You should have 4 pockets when you're done. So now I'm playing with the cover for this album. And this paper I purchased off of Etsy. It's beautiful digital paper. And I'm really pleased with how it came out. So here I'm cropping the paper down. So when you have stripes, try to make sure that your stripes look even left to right. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But try to have the same amount of black or white stripes showing on the right and the left if you can. So I cut 2 5 by 9 pieces of pattern paper. And then I cut, I cut 1 strip of 5 by 9 piece, and then I cut 2 at 4 1/2 by 9. I could have played with this a little bit. I don't love the way that I wrapped it. It worked, but I don't know. I think I could have, well, it wrapped okay. Not a big deal. So I'm looking at how I want this to go. And that rose paper is actually directional, so I had to put an arrow on there showing me which way is up. Did that stop me from making a mistake? No. Should it? Yes. So make sure if you have directional paper, you put a mark at which way is up and which way is down. So I took that chipboard piece. I have 2 chipboard pieces at 5 by 8 and then one, the spine, at 2 1/2 by 8. And I took the smallest piece and I centered it on that paper and glued it down with my art glitter glue. Now I'm just running glue along that edge. And I did about, like a quarter overlap. And then I do the same thing on the other side. Again, guys, my paper is directional, so you want both of the arrows to be facing up. Now, you don't have to get these perfectly straight, as in all of them perfectly lined up together, because you're going to wrap it, but you want to get it as close as you can. So here I'm going to glue down these chipboard pieces on either side about 1/8 of an inch apart so that they have room to close. I'm just eyeballing it. I'm just trying to eyeball it, guys. It's not an exact science. You can certainly take some shims, a few pieces of chipboard, 2 pieces of chipboard put together and slide it in between, but I'm just eyeballing it. And I feel like I did a pretty good job after watching it back. Like, it's pretty even. Again, the measurements and whatnot will be on the site. So now I'm taking that Colorways corner miter and I'm mitering my corners to make sure that I get a perfect fold. And it looks good. Now, what I should have done was put down this tape before I mitered the edges. I hate when I do that. It's so annoying. I should have done this before I mitered the edges. So annoying. Does it still work? Fine, but what happens is I don't have tape that goes all the way to the side. So then I have to put a little glue there. Not a major issue, just would have been easier. So I'm just burnishing the tape onto these edges. I wish that I had made the edges a little bit longer. I don't know why I wish that, because it wraps perfectly fine. It works out beautifully. So maybe I just need to leave the measurements as they are. So I'm training the paper to fold, and then I just roll that paper onto the chipboard. This is my favorite part of mini albums with chipboard. And we just push it in, train the paper to go into the little cracks. And we're rolling and we're pinching and we're folding. I am so in love with this paper. There's no reason for me to use any more of this paper at this point, but I really want to. I have an OfficeJet 76, I think it's 7610. I have a big printer and it runs through ink very quickly, but it will print out 12 by 12 pages. It doesn't go edge to edge, but it gives me a pretty good size piece of paper to work with. So here I am just tucking those corners in the same way that you would a present, and then you just fold on over. And the object of this is not to have any brown corners in the corner, and you see I don't have any. And that's what that little tool does. It gives you a perfect miter every time. Yeah, I don't know why I wanted a larger sheet of paper. This actually works out just about perfectly. So I'm just pulling those edges in, and I'm pulling off that tape, putting a little glue where there's no tape, and just folding it over. And look at that. Gorgeous, right? And training the paper once again. Now this next one, there are no measurements for. You just kind of do what you feel. So here it looks like I did about 4.5 by 7 by 7.5 maybe. And what I should have done is 7 3/4, which would have been the same length as the hinge. Not a big deal. You can't even tell, but I could tell when I did it. I was like, why didn't I do that? But I like how much of my border is showing around. So do it how you feel. Just make sure you're covering up that brown chipboard. That can be a creative decision. So here I'm cropping the paper, trying to make it look the way I want. I'm trying to get as much of the heads as I can. Trying not to clip off the lipstick, that kind of thing. So here you can see that some of the chipboard is still showing. That's because I wanted the center paper to overlap that paper and show. I could have taken this all the way across. But instead, I wanted to use one more sheet of paper from this collection. These are 2 different paper collections. The one on the front is one collection and the one on the back. Now, what happened is I realized my paper was directional, and at some point I must have flipped my album around. I should have marked which way it was up on the chipboard also, but I didn't. So now I'm looking at it, just checking again, and now we're going to put that back down. No worries, it glued down perfectly fine. Boy, I like that. I love that this lady thought to do Black people, fair skin, medium skin tone, and darker skin tones for her images. Sometimes that's an afterthought, but we Black girls want to have pretty stuff too. So everybody has an option on that one. I should say most people are. No, it covers pretty much everybody in my opinion. Look at this pretty paper. It's got little jack-o'-lanterns on it. And it's non-directional, even though I'm flipping it all around, trying to figure out which way is up and down. And I didn't like the way that I cut it initially, so I ended up wasting a lot of paper on this one. Oh well. I decided I wanted the stripes to go horizontal instead of vertical. So I had to recut it. And again, this is not an exact science. You're just trying to make sure that the papers that you put in the center all line up with one another. So whatever height you choose, that's the height you have to stick with for all 3 panels. And then we're going to glue it down. And you see how pretty that is? I like how all those papers show on the inside. And those pumpkins are going to peek out even after I put the spine down. So now you have to burnish. See, you can see the pumpkins on either side. Love that. That's a design choice there. So now we're just going to smooth out the pumpkins and make sure they're not lifting, and playing with the paper, making sure that the paper is doing what it's supposed to do. I can see that the paper is lifting just a little bit. So I'm going to sneak some glue in there and burnish, 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 and train the paper to go where it's supposed to go. And there we have it. We have our cover for our mini album. So now you just need to glue the center of that down. All of the center can take glue, all of that. You want to make sure it's down really well. And I'm centering it. And because the paper is, you know, pattern, it's kind of hard to see where center is. So I keep lifting up those sides to see if I'm getting it in the center, and I got it in there. I could have simply just marked center on that and then marked center on the paper, but that would be too much like right. So now we're going to add the fins to it. So now I'm just running a little glue around the edges and sticking it on there. The fins are smaller than the pocket, okay? So at the top, you pull the pocket down to line up with the top. You pull it down so you can't pull it down anymore. The center one, I just center it. I'm putting a little glue on there. I'm putting glue on the front and the back of that fin. And then I just center the pocket on that fin. So I should have the same amount of black showing up against the gray as I do the gray at the bottom. So I'm going to grab gray, and then this one, I'm going to pull it all the way up so that it meets the bottom. This sounds confusing. Just put the thing on the fin and make sure the bottom lines up with the bottom and the top lines up with the top. You don't want anything hanging outside your album. If you can see that it's hanging outside your album, you're doing it wrong. So here's a larger one. So I put a little glue on the top of that. And you see how big that pocket is, right? So we're going to close up that pocket. So I just pull it down. Watch, I pull it down to make sure that it lines up with the top. You'll feel it. It's going to stop. And then we just burnish it. You see how that black one lines up with the top of the other one? That's because there's a stopping point there. It stops. So now this one here, I'm going to pull up till it meets the fin at the bottom. And that way it all lines up. Nothing should be hanging out outside the album. This is not difficult to do. It just takes a little bit of time. And really not that much time. You're just gluing it closed. And I'm playing with it. And I'm leaving the other side open. You don't have to leave that side open. But this is why I say that this would lend itself really well to a December daily. If you did front and back, or the ones that are open, or however you want to put your numbers in there, this would be so cute in holiday paper. So cute. So after I glue all them in, this is what it looks like. I just alternated the cardstock, and I'm really pleased with the way that that part came out. So I go through it again. And this is what it looks like after I've decorated it. So I put some vinyl stickers on the front, and then I went through with vellum sheets and then some stickers. There's some tags on the inside that have all been, not all of them, but they've all been decorated in some sort. This album is great if you just want to do little short, if you just want to write some words down, or if you want to do 2x3 photos. This lends itself really well to the HP Sprocket. And there's some tags that go on the inside, the larger ones. I love this vellum paper. That's my favorite tag, with the brain salt and the brain behind it. And the poison sticker. No stickers on the black ones. And I use the Tim Holtz shifter stencils for these tags. So some tags have 2 colors, some tags have 1. And I use the oxides on the tags. That's got an owl, a skeleton owl. Beetle Brew. Bunny's my favorite. Really like the bunny. And these tags I cut out on my Cricut. I think I cut them out at like 3.5 by 3. Oh, look at that. I love stripes. You just can't go wrong with stripes. Here's another long tag. I like that too, with the beakers. These stamps come from Michaels. The designs are great. The quality is poor. So make sure you have your Versamark and your VersaFine Clear ready to make those stamps work properly. Look at the rat. Oh, I just love this stamp set. Again, if Halloween is not your thing, I completely understand, but this would also really lend itself well to a December daily. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope you guys try this because it's a lot of fun and it's easy.